My name is Julia Berkey. I am the pastor of First Church in Middletown, Connecticut. I've been at this church for 3 years, going into my 4th year, and I am a graduate of Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York. Graduated in 2012. So I am. My sense of call to the ministry is actually, it was a very circuitous path because I applied for seminary, not having been raised in Christian faith. My mother is Buddhist, my dad is a philosophy professor, and they both contextually come from Christian backgrounds. My mom more Catholic, my dad Protestant, but it always left, they each had their own paths of doing things, and it left this question for me of what is my truth, what is my path? And so I went to seminary with this question of that. How do we articulate our spirituality? And undergraduate, I studied this sacred spaces, the architecture of sacred spaces. And that took me to seminary, that question. How do we experience the divine in spaces, in bodies, in the earth? And my sense of call to ministry is very linked to that. The sense of wonder and the searching for an experience of truth. And I think Christianity used to, and still does for some communities, supply, like, this is your belief. But I believe that now Christianity is a little bit more fluid, and it's more about belonging than it is about a particular dogma or belief system. And I really seek to, with my ministry, my sense of call to ministry is to open up Christianity to all sorts of spiritual experiences rather than just the dogma of this is what you have to believe to belong, but to extend the belonging, the radical welcome that the United Church of Christ talks about to all people the best that we can. And then the sense of call to the parish, I mean, this is my parish, and this sort of abstract theoretical stuff needs to be rooted in local community. And one can be spiritual on their own. They can walk labyrinths, and we can meditate, and we can do yoga. But to have a community that gathers and that cares about the local community and cares about the people who are gathered, that take care of one another when they're in need, that inspires me. And not growing up in a religious tradition, this is something that when I entered into Christian community, I was really moved by and continue to be. And this community in particular that I serve, one of the most profound moments of the Sunday services are the joys and concerns. When people pass the microphone around and reveal what's going on in their lives, cancer, death, prayers for their own addiction, prayers for their mother, whatever it is. And I've had people come in, our local rabbi came in with his confirmation class and said, the vulnerability that happens in here is really profound. So rooting in local context is my call to the parish. And then the UCC, I think I just have gratitude for the UCC. They're the thing that connects us all to one another, the system of accountability. And I really believe in the congregational system that is not, you have to answer to a pope or a bishop or a cardinal. They don't tell you what to believe, but they keep you accountable with the local associations. And they try to provide a vision. And I was honored to be asked to be part of a strategic visioning thing, which I gathered people who are under 40 and talked about, what is your vision of the church? What do you think church building should be used for? What do you think, what do you care about in terms of social justice? And so the UCC believes that God is still speaking and revealing God's self in the world. And I'm really proud to be part of that conversation and part of articulating that vision.
Okay.
But I also got, when I got ordained, I got a boa.
Yes.
And my minister put it on me and said, don't take yourself too seriously.
Got it.
Take yourself lightly.
Yes.
So
That's
is a
great.
good lesson for me. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about this one a lot. And I think, if I'm honest, this is something that shifts throughout my life, depending on where I am, where I'm serving. Because part of it is to be of service. and to serve where I am. But if I come to the root of like why I think I'm on earth, I think it has something to do with awakening in people a sense of the divine, and in particular in our bodies. So this is the incarnation. This is how we talk about it in the Christian tradition. But this is a wave of spirituality that is happening in the world that is happening as if it's the first time it's happening, where people are finding the divine through yoga and through dance and through being outside. And they're like, I don't go to church because this is where I find God. And if you look into the scriptures, you can find this all over the place. And I'll talk about that later with my like why I chose what passage I chose. But it's really, I think, my personal vision, mission statement really has something to do with awakening in people a sense of embodied divine presence. And that means like the stuff that we wear is significant. The things around us are significant. All come from some place. It has to do with accountability and being connected to the earth and to each other. And if we really believe that we embody the divine and that one another embody the divine, we treat each other differently, and our systems eventually reflect that. And I think a lot of the violence that's done to individuals and to the earth is because, we don't believe you inhabit the holy. And if we can really shift that and really have a sense of God is not in heaven waiting for us, but God is here now, I mean, that's a revolution. And so that is, in my mind, my personal vision, mission statement. And the way I articulate that is through the arts. I'm a dancer, and that was my spiritual formation. So learning the discipline of the body, mind, spirit connection for myself, and learning the holistic experience of being a human being, and certainly through the arts and social justice. And the combination of social justice through the arts is a particular way that I'm always drawn to expressing this vision. So many examples of that are, even in church on Sunday, the folks who come and sing and are in the choirs, and their sense of connection to God is through singing. And they're helping them articulate that it's through the arts, through the art of singing, that they're able to experience God is, I think, something huge and beautiful. And also, I've had this fantasy for a while of doing like an international dance festival for women's empowerment. Feel the energy, your own energy. Then put your left hand down and your right hand up to the person next to you. Feel the energy pulse throughout the room.
This is the spiritual connection that we have to one another after we leave this space. The people that have left already, we are connected to them. Our ancestors who have left this earth, we are connected to them. The women whose shoulders, they will stand on our shoulders, our daughters, our sisters, the people who aren't here yet. And we are doing work to create a world where women are treated equally, where women are offered the same opportunities as men. And right now, we recognize the power of women, the power that we each have inside of us to be our gentle, fierce, powerful, authentic selves.
So, one thing I'm most passionate about in the congregation I am currently serving, which is First Church in Middletown here, is getting the community involved in social justice movements and in community organizing. And something right now that we're doing is the refugee resettlement program. And we've just made headlines in the Hartford Courant, which is, a big newspaper in Connecticut, of Middletown leading the way in the refugee resettlement efforts in Connecticut. And Connecticut is leading the way in the refugee resettlement efforts in the country. And so to be part of a grassroots movement where folks are getting together, where local pastors and parishioners and the executive director of the soup kitchen and the president of the NAACP and the mayor, people are coming together and saying, we want to welcome people who have been kicked out of their home country, and we want to, in particular, make our community a welcoming and safe place for them. That is so powerful to me, and I have so much energy for that. Like, I can do that all day, and I love helping my congregation get involved in that and bringing them to meetings with me. And when the families actually come here, that will be a really amazing experience. So the refugee resettlement efforts are something I'm really passionate about in my local congregation right now, and that expands to any time I can get my congregation involved in, or that they are involved or excited on their own about transforming the community for the better. The love of God revealed in Jesus reconciles us, heals us, and sets us free to see one another clearly, to challenge one another honestly, to work with one another for God's vision of justice, love, and peace. Amen. The biblical text that I chose that has influenced and shaped my understanding of my ministry is from Isaiah in the Hebrew Bible. It's Isaiah 55:12. So it's a short verse, and I'll read it by a river, by a babbling brook, which I shot myself. I'm very proud of that. Please cut that out. Isaiah 55, and I'm going to read 10 through 13, but it's really verse 12 that I love. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and do not return there until they have watered the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose, and succeed in the things which I sent it. And here is my favorite line. For you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace, and the mountains and the hills burst forth in song. And all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress. Instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle. And it shall be to the Lord for a memorial, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. The text basically says it animates earth. It animates the wilderness. It says, may you go out in joy and be led forth in peace, and the trees of the fields will clap their hands. And it really has this sense of, it anthropomorphizes the earth and the trees. It makes them like human beings with hands. But the other side of that is it makes the earth animated with a sense of presence. It's not just like a thing to be taken advantage of or to be plowed down or even to be stewards of, but it's another essence in and of itself to revere. And that has been hugely influential to my ministry, because coming from a spiritual but not religious background, coming from, Buddhist mother, again, philosophy professor father, my mother was an environmentalist growing up, and she started this organization called Retree Schenectady. I'm from Schenectady, New York. And so I really learned I had instilled in me from an early age the importance of ecology and the environment and the earth, and had a profound sense of connection with the earth growing up. And so I care a lot about eco-justice. I consider myself an eco-feminist theologian, and that means having a sense of, that means a lot of different things, but the Isaiah 55 text, when I was first experiencing the Bible, in an academic setting in graduate school, rather than just like reading it on my own. I had a sense of connection with tradition, that my spiritual experience was reflected in tradition and in scripture, and not even in the New Testament, but in the Old Testament. And that was really powerful for me. And I think there's a lot of folks in my generation that have left the church for various reasons, but are like, I find God in sunsets and like in being outside. And I'm like, amen to that. I do too. And you can come to church and be in community with us on Sunday mornings.
And I'll go on a short walk alone, and both times I found this clearing in the patch of pine trees. And somehow just being there, centering myself there, has brought me to tears. Weeping for no reason, for the beauty of the earth, for the connection to creation, for the glory of God, and all I can utter through my tears is something like, thank you, and use me, my will is yours. And I feel like the trees and the mountains and my soul are unified, shouting for peace, shouting for God, shouting for the connective spirit of love that runs through us.
So, leadership lessons I've learned through the years that have proven valuable in my ministry. There's so many things. I feel like it's been trial by fire in my first 3 years of leading this congregation. And I've learned about myself that I am comfortable leading from within, and that instinct is actually really good for the health of the congregation on the whole. I think I have this, and I think a lot of pastors do, have this sense of like, this can't all be about me. It cannot all be about like my personality and the things I say on Sunday morning. That is way too much pressure. And to lead from within means the things that we do, the choices that we make as a congregation, are not from the top down, but they are from listening really carefully to what is being articulated in the community, and and kind of like leading from behind and leading from within, rather than being the front person that's saying, come on, everybody follow me. Because in the church, we follow the scriptures. We follow the ethics of love and justice that are laid forth for us, and we interpret them, and that is my job. But really leading from beside the people has been a huge learning thing for me. And then, the other side of that is something that is uncomfortable for me, is that the persona and the personality of the pastor really do, and the affect of the pastor really does trickle down in the congregation. So if I'm having like an anxious day and I go to a meeting, I will realize that a lot of people feel anxious after being in my presence. And so the affect of my affect affects people. And it's as if this whole body is a living organism, and if there's like one thing that's a little bit off, people can feel it, even if they don't know quite what it is, if they can't articulate what it is. So this, another lesson that I've learned is if there's any underlying unresolved issues or things people aren't talking about, they will bubble up and people will feel them. And that's something that, I think these things can be like pushed to the side, or I sort of thought that coming in. But I've really learned from being here that transparency and dialogue and honesty are really powerful tools, and often uncomfortable tools. And then another thing that follows that is that people want resolution very quickly to things, and that it's process where the real fruit of community is. It's not what we say our vision is, but it's who we become as we try to articulate it. So those are some powerful lessons that I've learned, and I know I'm just going to keep learning more things. I am a constant absorber and learner. When I got installed here, everybody wrote their names on rocks, and I haven't looked at this for a while. It's pretty cool. It's really moving, actually, to look at these rocks and see my family members, people who have passed away already in the last 3 years, people who have left the church or moved, pastors that used to be here that aren't anymore, and people that I've learned to love. It's really amazing. And I'm the 16th settled minister here, and the church is 350 years old. I'm definitely the first woman here. 16 ministers in 350 years. Do the math. People stay here for a long time. Yeah, this is Charles K. Stout, and this is my grandma, who I really look up to. My mom actually, when I got ordained, made me this stole that was made out of her dress. Like, this was the fabric of one of her dresses. And then my other grandmother's rosary beads are on the back of it. And then my mom is an artist, and she painted an owl and a full moon. And whenever I need like a little extra like ancestral oomph, I wear this. So the most pressing challenges facing Christian congregations today are not the declining numbers. That's what everyone thinks it is. It's not the declining numbers. It's the inability to change and to be open to the changing tides of the Holy Spirit and of the new generations. So what's often articulated as the problem facing the church today is the irrelevance of the message, or, needing to interpret the message for new times. But I don't think that is the challenge. I think the challenge is the church not being able to open its doors to the spiritual revolution that is already happening. And if the church can't do that and can't change, especially as it involves social justice issues and human rights issues, if the church can't be an outspoken voice for those things, the church will die, and rightfully so. And old models of church, the church that Paul started, that, Jesus built his rock on Peter, whatever, that church is gone. That church has been gone. And we're not worried about that. And so there's this sense of we've always done it that way. And churches, I think that is one of the main challenges facing Christian congregations today, the we've always done it that way thing. Because tradition, when you go back, can be really valuable and really powerful. And to bring the right things in tradition forward, I think is something that takes a lot of community discernment. But if you bring the wrong pieces of tradition forward, you just get stuck. And there needs to be movement, not stagnation. And when there's stagnation, that's when there's problems, and that's when there's death. And death is not always bad. We believe in resurrection. So I think there's a lot of things that are dying about the church right now, and I'm excited about that because there's a lot of things that need to die about the church right now. But I think that I'm called to help bring the phoenix, the resurrection of what is happening after that, or at least to be the midwife of that energy, that movement. Within the realm of pressing challenges facing Christian congregations today. So I'll contextualize Christian congregations to my congregation, which is predominantly white. In a predominantly white town, but we are not all white. And Sunday morning is historically the most segregated hour in the week. And that's not always a bad thing, because people need their communities, people need their safe spaces. I think it's problematic when we want to, for our own benefit, diversify, because we want to be more politically correct. But I think understanding as white folks, and my congregation is mostly white folks, our own complicit behavior in the systems of racism, that is huge right now. And that's something that we are being taught by the Black Lives Matter movement. That although the policies have changed, the Jim Crow policies have changed, like I said this morning, the Jim Crow hate has not changed. And that something right now in our political climate is terrifying to me. And if Christian congregations cannot be an outspoken voice against that, and to really examine our own complicity in racist systems, we are going to be irrelevant, and we are going to perish. And we are not going to be part of the justice movement that we so desperately want to be and seek to be part of. Allow us each to open ourselves and become vehicles for healing justice.
Help us each to examine the sicknesses of empire that we are sometimes complicit in, sometimes not even aware of. Forgive us, O God. Allow us to lift up those who you stand beside, to witness the resilience of the human spirit, to witness the incredible sensitivity of the soul.
Yeah. So why do I want to be part of the NGLI?
Yeah.
Why do I want to be part of the Next Generation Leadership Initiative? I'm alone here. It's just me up there, and I want colleagues. I want people to bounce ideas off of. I want people to learn from and to help me learn and to help them learn and to help transform the church in general. And I can't do that alone. And I have my colleagues in the Connecticut Conference, but I want to reach beyond the Connecticut Conference and even beyond the UCC. I mean, I am really profoundly grateful for the UCC, but I know the NGLI will help us think beyond the boxes that we've been in. That's my hope for the program. And I think that having the cohort and having the people, the mentors that will help train, like this is my first call out of seminary, and I'm a solo pastor. And that's a huge privilege, but also that means I haven't had a mentor to train me in this. I've had to rely on the conference itself. And I think having the NGLI and the cohort of colleagues and the mentors that are built into the program will be profoundly influential for my own ministry and for my own sustainability of being able to do this and stay with it, because it's not always easy. So that's what I anticipate will strengthen my ministry. And then the second question was, what contributions and gifts would I bring to my cohort of colleagues? And the way I hear that is what is unique about me and what can I bring to people, to a group of people who are perhaps doing the same thing but also want to be strengthened. I would say that, so I've just entered into the first full year of a Doctor of Ministry program at Hartford Seminary, which is right in my backyard. And, it's 25 minutes north, and Hartford Seminary is the premier seminary doing interfaith dialogue right now. So I am in classes with Muslim leaders, with Jewish leaders, with Buddhist leaders, with people who are just seeking. And Hartford Seminary is able to be, they've gone through this sort of death and resurrection thing already, and they're really looking at the way that church and religion is looking right now in the world and in the country and in Connecticut. And it's really equipping me with language around where we are, our particular moment in history. And I think that's something that I'm really passionate about and that I'm passionate about sharing with other people. And also, being in a Doctor of Ministry program, I'm really committed to this path. And I'm investing time and energy, like my free time and money, into this program. And I think that will help my colleagues and help me bring some perspective, different perspective, into the cohort that I join into. My background as someone who is not raised in the church, I think sets me apart a little bit. I know there are more and more millennial leaders who were not raised in a Christian tradition but are coming to the church. But that is what we seek to happen. That is certainly what I seek to happen, to make churches accessible to people who don't consider themselves religious but want to be rooted in local community. And because I am one of those people, I've had that personal experience myself of kind of conversion and transformation. I think that I can really help people understand that point of view in my cohort. I would also say my dance background and my passion for the arts helps me think differently about religion and interpret text differently and listen differently and look at the world differently. So I would hope I would bring that. And also my queer identity, being an out queer woman with a female identified partner who's genderqueer, and that makes me live in the world in a different way. That makes me live in the world in a more creative way. So I think these different identities, these things that have formed me, will help strengthen my cohort. And these are gifts that I can bring that make me uniquely who I am, that I can share with the folks that hopefully I'll be able to learn from and learn with and even teach a little bit. Another contribution or gift that I could bring to my cohort and colleagues, and this is another pieces of my sense of call to ministry, are the newly discovered texts from early Christian times. So this includes things like the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Thomas, the Thunder Perfect Mind, the Secret Revelation of John, the Acts of Paul and Thecla. And these are texts that have been lost for hundreds and hundreds of years, and that they were shut out as heretical texts. But if we look at them now and we put them in conversation with our traditional texts that have been in the canon of the Bible for a long time, it opens up Christianity in completely new and beautiful ways. And I'm really passionate about finding ways to bring these texts alongside of our traditional texts. And a professor of mine that I've worked with and that I help, I'm part of their conference or their, I don't know, it's not even organized enough to call it a thing, but we're visioning about how we can bring these newly discovered texts in conversation with the old texts in the 21st century, and especially in terms of the arts and social justice. And this book, A New Testament, is an example of an effort towards that. And this is a lot of my colleagues from Union Seminary getting together a group of people that looked through 75 different ancient texts and got together an ecumenical council of people and decided on 10 texts that they would decide to add together to a New Testament. Not the New Testament, but a New Testament. And this just opens up the idea of Bible and scripture and canon. Some of these things that we use to hurt one another in the Christian tradition, like this is what the Bible says, therefore you're a sinner. When we're able to figure out how to open the Bible up from very historically accurate first century texts that are really in conversation with the Bible as we know it, I mean, that is just that's going to be another revolution, I think, and that I'm really excited to bring to the local church and to my colleagues in the NGLI.